Let's go ahead and see how to find a slant asymptote. So finding a slant asymptote turns out to be relatively easy as long as we identify it and then don't forget to kind of go all the way and find the whole thing. And I'll talk about what I mean there. But let's go through the process here. If we were going to find the horizontal asymptote, or check to see what kind of horizontal asymptote it is, we'd look at the limit as x approaches infinity, which means we just look at those big terms on the top and the bottom. And when we reduce this down, we find that we just wind up with 3x. Oh, again, that is a line, okay, and it is not a horizontal line, so that means we have a slant asymptote. But I'll reiterate, this is not our slant asymptote. All right, so how do we find the slant asymptote? Well, if you notice, what we're doing here is we're dividing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to actually do this division here. So we'll use synthetic division to do that. I'm going to find the 0 of the denominator and set up my synthetic division and divide. And once again, I'll reiterate that here we have a second degree polynomial, and we reduce that down to a first degree polynomial, which is of course going to be linear, which is what we want. So what we find is that this, when we divide it, just ends up being 3x minus 10 plus 41 over x plus 4. Now, one of the things that I'll point out, and you can kind of look at some previous examples I did, is as x gets really big or really negative, this piece right here is just going to approach 0. So it goes away. So that leaves us with our slant asymptote here. Okay, so our slant asymptote is just y equals 3x minus 10. So let's kind of walk through that process again. So first, we do what we do with all of the horizontal asymptotes, and we look at the limit as x gets really positive or negative. We then identify the fact that it has a slant asymptote. And then we do the full division to determine what the slant asymptote is, ignoring our remainder and just kind of keeping the meat of that line. Y equals 3x minus 10. It's in slope-intercept form, pretty easy to graph.